I remember the day I received the mysterious letter like it was yesterday. The envelope was plain, with no return address and no indication of who might have sent it. I tore it open, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The letter was brief, to the point, and it changed my life forever. "I am writing to inform you that you have a twin sister," it read. "She was given up for adoption at birth, and her existence has been kept secret from you by your family." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I stumbled backward, my mind reeling with questions and emotions. A twin sister? What did that even mean? Why had my family kept this from me? And what was her life like? Did she know about me? I spent the rest of the day in a daze, trying to process this new information. I kept thinking about my childhood, wondering if there were any clues that I'd missed. Had my parents ever mentioned anything about a twin sister? I couldn't remember ever hearing anything like that. As the sun began to set, I called my sister, the one who'd been my closest confidant since childhood. I wanted to talk to her about it, to see if she knew anything. But when she answered the phone, I felt a pang of guilt. What if she didn't know? What if she was in on it too? "Hey sis," I said, trying to sound casual. "I got this weird letter in the mail today. It says I have a twin sister." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I thought I'd lost the connection. But then my sister spoke up, her voice hesitant. "Where did you get that?" she asked, sounding like she was trying to deflect the question. I hesitated, unsure of how to answer. Part of me wanted to tell her everything, to ask her if she knew anything. But another part of me was scared that she might be involved in this deception. "I don't know," I said finally, trying to sound nonchalant. "Some lawyer sent it to me." My sister sighed, and I could almost hear her thinking. "We need to talk," she said finally. "But not on the phone. Can we meet up tomorrow?" I agreed, my mind racing with possibilities. What was going on? Why had my family kept this from me? And what did my sister know? The next day, I met my sister at a small coffee shop near our old neighborhood. We sat down at a table, and I could feel the tension between us like a palpable thing. "Okay, tell me everything," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My sister took a deep breath and then began to explain. "Mom and Dad found out about the twin when we were kids," she said, her eyes dropping to the table. "They were worried that it would ruin our relationship, so they made a decision to keep it from you." I felt a wave of anger wash over me. Why had they done that? Why had they kept this from me for so long? But why now? I asked, my voice rising. Why reveal it after all these years? My sister looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and sadness. "Because your twin is living your dream life," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's married, with kids, and a house in the suburbs. And she's always wondered about you." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut again, this time even harder than before. My twin sister? Living my dream life? It was too much to take in. As I sat there, trying to process this new information, I realized that I had so many questions. Who was my twin sister? What was her life like? And why had my family kept this from me for so long? I looked at my sister, and for a moment, we just sat there in silence. It was like the whole world had shifted, and we were both struggling to find our footing. "I want to meet her," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. My sister nodded, a small smile on her face. "I'll set it up," she said. "But be warned, you're going to be shocked." I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions swirling inside me. I was scared, but I was also curious. Who was my twin sister? And what would I find when I met her? I often find myself drifting back to those carefree days of my childhood, surrounded by the warmth and love of my family. My sister and I were inseparable, sharing secrets, playing games, and getting into all sorts of mischief. I remember the way she'd smile at me, her eyes sparkling with mischief, as we'd concoct some new scheme to drive our parents crazy. Those were the days of laughter, of adventure, and of unbridled joy. But as I look back, I realize that there was something missing. A void that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I tried to fill it with more playtime, more games, more laughter, but it always seemed to linger just beneath the surface. I brushed it off as mere childhood imagination. But deep down, I knew something was amiss. As I grew older, I began to notice little things about my sister that I'd never paid attention to before. The way she'd glance at me with a hint of guilt in her eyes, the way she'd quickly change the subject whenever I'd ask her about our past. It was as if she was hiding something from me, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. I try to remember the specific moments, the conversations, the laughter that might have hinted at the truth. But like trying to grasp a handful of sand, the more I squeeze, the more it slips through my fingers. My mind is a jumble of fragmented memories, each one tantalizingly close to the truth, but never quite revealing it. I recall one particular summer afternoon, when my sister and I were rummaging through our parents' old trunk in the attic. We were searching for treasures, but instead we stumbled upon a dusty old photo album. As we flipped through the pages, I noticed a strange omission, a gap in the family tree that seemed to yawn open like a chasm. I pointed it out to my sister, but she quickly dismissed it as nothing, just a minor detail. But that gap, that void, it kept nagging at me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden from me, something big, something that would change everything. As I look back now, I realize that those childhood memories, the ones I thought were so carefree and innocent, were actually a carefully constructed facade. My sister was hiding something, and I had no idea what it was. But I was beginning to suspect that it was connected to a truth that would shake the very foundations of our family. And that's when the strange letter arrived, the one that would change everything. A letter that would reveal the shocking truth about my twin sister's existence and the life she's been living, a life that's been mine to have. My heart is racing just thinking about it. I can feel the weight of this secret bearing down on me, but I know I have to keep going to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it may be. Because in the end, it's not just about the truth, but about the love and the lies that have bound our family together for all these years. As I take a deep breath, I can feel the memories flooding back, like a tidal wave crashing against the shore. And I know that I have to confront the truth, no matter how difficult it may be. The truth about my sister, the truth about my family, and the truth about the life I thought I knew. But what if the truth is more than I can handle? What if it shatters everything I thought I knew about myself and my family? I can feel the uncertainty creeping in, like a fog rolling in off the ocean. But I know I have to press on, no matter what, because in the end, it's not just about the truth, but about the love and the lies that have bound our family together for all these years. And I'm ready to face it head on, no matter what secrets it may reveal. I stared at my parents, their faces a mixture of guilt and denial as I confronted them about the possibility of a twin sister. My mind had been racing with questions for years. Why had my sister never mentioned me? Why had she taken my place in our family? And why did she seem to be living the life I had always dreamed of? Dad. Mom, I need to ask you something, I said, my voice shaking with a mix of emotions. Is it true? Is there a twin sister I don't know about? My parents exchanged a nervous glance, and my mom's eyes dropped to the floor. Where did you hear that? She asked, her voice hesitant. I took a deep breath, trying to process the conflicting emotions swirling inside me. I found a letter, a birth certificate, and a photo of a baby who looks just like me. I know it's a lot to take in, but I need answers. My dad sighed, running a hand through his hair. Okay, kiddo, we'll tell you the truth. But you have to understand, this is a lot to take in, and it's not easy for us to talk about. My mom nodded, taking my hand in hers. We'll tell you everything, but you have to promise not to be upset. I nodded, feeling a sense of trepidation wash over me. I'll try, but you have to promise me the truth. My dad took a deep breath, his eyes locking onto mine. Okay, kiddo. Your sister, her name is Emma. She's your twin sister, and she was born just a few minutes before you. I felt a wave of shock wash over me, my mind reeling with the revelation. But why didn't you ever tell me? Why did she take my place? My mom's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. We were young and we made a mistake. We didn't mean to hurt you, but we thought it was the best decision at the time. Emma was born with a few health issues, and we thought it would be better for her to be raised as an only child. We didn't mean to keep it a secret, but it just happened that way. I felt a sense of anger and betrayal wash over me, but I tried to keep my emotions in check. So she's been living my life, my dream life, without me even knowing it? My dad nodded, his eyes filled with regret. Yes, kiddo. We're so sorry. We know it's not fair, but we hope you can find it in your heart to forgive us." I took a deep breath, trying to process the revelation. It was a lot to take in, but I knew I had to move forward, to find out more about my twin sister and the life she had been living. As I sat there, trying to process my emotions, I couldn't help but wonder what Emma's life was like, what she was like, and what she had been through. I knew I had to find out, to learn more about the sister I had never known. "Okay, Mom, Dad, I think I need some time to process this," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But I want to meet Emma, to get to know her, and to learn more about our family's secrets." My parents nodded, tears streaming down their faces. "We'll take you to meet her, kiddo. We'll do whatever it takes to make things right." As I left my parents' house, I felt a sense of uncertainty wash over me. I knew I had a long journey ahead of me, one that would take me to places I never thought I'd go. But I was ready. I was determined to learn more about my twin sister and the life she had been living. And I was willing to do whatever it took to find out the truth. I walked outside, feeling the sun on my face, and took a deep breath of the fresh air. I knew I had a long road ahead of me, but I was ready to face it head on. I was ready to uncover the secrets of my family's past, to learn more about my twin sister, and to find out the truth about the life she had been living. As I walked away from my parents' house, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held, what secrets lay hidden, and what I would discover about my family's past. But one thing was for sure: I was ready to take the journey, to uncover the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. I sat in my car, parked outside my parents' house, and took a deep breath. I was trying to process the revelation, the shock, and the anger that had been building up inside me. I knew I had a long journey ahead of me, one that would take me to places I never thought I'd go. But I was ready. I was determined to learn more about my twin sister and the life she had been living. As I sat there, I couldn't help but wonder what my sister's life was like, what she was like, and what she had been through. I knew I had to find out, to learn more about the sister I had never known. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I knew I had to focus, to concentrate on what I had to do next. I had to meet my twin sister, to get to know her, and to learn more about our family's secrets. I started the car and drove away from my parents' house. I knew I had a long road ahead of me, but I was ready to face it head on. I was ready to uncover the secrets of my family's past, to learn more about my twin sister, and to find out the truth about the life she had been living. As I drove, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement, of anticipation. I was about to embark on a journey that would change my life forever, a journey that would take me to places I never thought I'd go. I knew I had a lot to learn, a lot to discover, and a lot to uncover. But I was ready. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. I sat in my room, surrounded by photos of my family, and took a deep breath. I was trying to process the revelation, the shock, and the anger that had been building up inside me. I knew I had a long journey ahead of me, one that would take me to places I never thought I'd go. But I was ready. I was determined to learn more about my twin sister and the life she had been living. As I sat there, I couldn't help but wonder what my sister's life was like, what she was like, and what she had been through. I knew I had to find out, to learn more about the sister I had never known. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I knew I had to focus, to concentrate on what I had to do next. I had to meet my twin sister, to get to know her, and to learn more about our family's secrets. I started to rummage through my old trunk, looking for any photos or mementos that might give me a glimpse into my sister's life. As I searched, I stumbled upon a small photo album hidden away in the back of the trunk. I opened the album, and my heart skipped a beat as I saw the photos of my sister, growing up, laughing and playing. I felt a wave of emotions wash over me, a mix of sadness, anger, and curiosity. I knew I had to learn more about my sister, to get to know her, and to understand her life. I was ready to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. As I sat there, Surrounded by the photos and mementos of my sister's life, I knew I had a long road ahead of me. But I was ready. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. I sat in my car, parked outside my family's old house, and took a deep breath. I was about to meet my twin sister for the first time, and I was nervous, excited, and scared. I had so many questions, so many emotions, and so many doubts. As I sat there, I couldn't help but think about my sister's life, what she was like, and what she had been through. I knew I had to be open-minded, to be understanding, and to be patient. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I knew I had to focus, to concentrate on what I had to do next. I had to meet my twin sister, to get to know her, and to learn more about our family's secrets. I got out of the car and walked towards the front door. I could see my sister standing in the doorway, smiling at me. I felt a wave of emotions wash over me, a mix of excitement, nervousness, and fear. As I approached her, I couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder, a sense of awe. My sister was standing in front of me, smiling at me, and I felt like I was seeing her for the first time. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I knew I had to be open-minded, to be understanding, and to be patient. "Hi," I said, trying to sound calm. "Hi," she replied, smiling at me. As we stood there, looking at each other, I knew I had a long journey ahead of me, but I was ready. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. I sat in my car, parked outside my sister's house, and took a deep breath. I had just met my twin sister for the first time, and I was trying to process the emotions, the feelings, and the thoughts that were swirling inside me as I sat there. I couldn't help but think about my sister's life, what she was like, and what she had been through. I knew I had to be open-minded, to be understanding, and to be patient. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I knew I had to focus, to concentrate on what I had to do next. I had to learn more about my sister, to get to know her, and to understand her life. I started the car and drove away from my sister's house. I knew I had a long road ahead of me, but I was ready. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. As I drove, I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement, of anticipation. I was about to embark on a journey that would change my life forever, a journey that would take me to places I never thought I'd go. I knew I had a lot to learn, a lot to discover, and a lot to uncover. But I was ready. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. As I drove away from my sister's house, I knew I was leaving behind a part of my past, a part of my history. But I was ready to face the future, to take on the challenges, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. I sat in my room, surrounded by photos of my sister and me, and took a deep breath. I was trying to process the emotions, the feelings, and the thoughts that were swirling inside me. I had just met my twin sister for the first time, and I was trying to understand her life, her choices, and her decisions. As I sat there, I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness, of loss. I had missed out on so much of my sister's life, so much of our childhood, and so much of our family's history. But I was ready to move forward, to learn more about my sister, to get to know her and to understand her life. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. As I sat there, surrounded by the photos and mementos of our sisterhood, I knew I had a long road ahead of me. But I was ready. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I knew I had to focus, to concentrate on what I had to do next. I had to learn more about my sister, to get to know her, and to understand her life. I started to rummage through my old trunk, looking for any photos or mementos that might give me a glimpse into my sister's life. As I searched, I stumbled upon a small box hidden away in the back of the trunk. I opened the box, and my heart skipped a beat as I saw the photos of my sister growing up, laughing and playing. I felt a wave of emotions wash over me, a mix of sadness, anger, and curiosity. I knew I had to learn more about my sister, to get to know her, and to understand her life. I was ready to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. As I sat there, surrounded by the photos and mementos of our sisterhood, I knew I had a long road ahead of me. But I was ready, I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. I sat in my room, surrounded by photos of my sister and me, and took a deep breath. I was trying to process the emotions, the feelings, and the thoughts that were swirling inside me. I had just met my twin sister for the first time, and I was trying to understand her life, her choices, and her decisions. As I sat there, I couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder, a sense of awe. My sister was standing in front of me, smiling at me, and I felt like I was seeing her for the first time. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I knew I had to be open-minded, to be understanding, and to be patient. "Hi," I said, trying to sound calm. "Hi," she replied, smiling at me as we stood there looking at each other. I knew I had a long journey ahead of me, but I was ready. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. As I sat there, surrounded by the photos and mementos of our sisterhood, I knew I had a lot to learn, a lot to discover, and a lot to uncover, but I was ready. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. I knew I had to focus, to concentrate on what I had to do next. I had to learn more about my sister, to get to know her, and to understand her life. I started to rummage through my old trunk, looking for any photos or mementos that might give me a glimpse into my sister's life. As I searched, I stumbled upon a small journal, hidden away in the back of the trunk. I opened the journal, and my heart skipped a beat as I saw the entries, the thoughts, and the feelings of my sister. I felt a wave of emotions wash over me, a mix of sadness, anger, and curiosity. I knew I had to learn more about my sister, to get to know her, and to understand her life. I was ready to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. As I sat there, surrounded by the photos and mementos of our sisterhood, I knew I had a long road ahead of me, but I was ready. I was willing to take the journey, to face the truth, and to learn more about the sister I had never known. I sat in my car, parked outside my sister's house, and took a deep breath. I had just finished reading my sister's journal, and I stared at the screen, my eyes scanning through my sister's social media profiles. We didn't keep in touch much after our parents' divorce, but I'd always known she was living a life that was different. Now, as I delved deeper into her online presence, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease creeping up my spine. It started with the photos. Same bright smile, same sparkling eyes, but the backdrop was always different. One day, she'd be posing in front of a sleek, modern skyscraper. The next, she'd be lounging on a pristine white beach. The scenery changed, but the person remained the same, or at least, a version of me that I'd never been allowed to be. I continued scrolling, my heart racing as I discovered more and more parallels between our lives. My sister had always been the golden child, the one who'd effortlessly charmed our parents into giving her everything she wanted. Me? I'd been the dutiful, obedient one, always trying to live up to expectations, never daring to dream big. But now, as I watched my sister's life unfold on social media, I felt a growing sense of resentment. Why had she been given all the opportunities, all the love? Why had I been pushed to the sidelines, forced to watch her take my place in our family? I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the emotions that were swirling inside me. I needed to keep investigating, to uncover the truth behind my sister's seemingly perfect life. I began to dig deeper, searching for any clues that might explain why she'd hidden my existence from our parents, and why she was living the life that I'd always wanted for myself. But the more I learned, the more questions I had. Who was this person really? And why had she felt the need to erase me from her life? As the hours passed, my mind racing with theories and scenarios, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was getting closer to something big. something that would change everything. I leaned back in my chair, my eyes fixed on the screen as I waited for the next piece of the puzzle to fall into place. And then, just as I was starting to feel like I was getting nowhere, I stumbled upon a post that made my heart skip a beat. A photo of my sister, smiling brightly as she stood in front of a lavish mansion. The caption beneath it read, "Home Sweet Home." I felt a chill run down my spine as I stared at the image. This was more than just a house. It was a symbol of the life my sister had built for herself. A life that I'd always dreamed of but never thought I'd have. And as I gazed at the photo, I couldn't help but wonder, what had my sister done to deserve this? And what had I done to be left behind? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my sister's secrets bearing down on me. I knew I had to keep investigating, to uncover the truth behind her mysterious life. But as I delved deeper into the mystery, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was getting in over my head. Was I ready for what I might find? I stared at the old family photo album, my fingers tracing the familiar contours of my childhood home. The one with the white picket fence, the swing set, and the big oak tree where my sister and I would play for hours. I had always thought I was the only child, the center of my family's universe. But now I knew that was a lie. My sister, Emma, had always been a ghost in our family's history. I had never met her, never seen her face. But I had heard whispers, hints of her existence. My parents would sometimes glance at each other, their eyes clouded with a mixture of guilt and sadness. It was as if they were carrying a secret, one that they couldn't share with me. I remembered the day my parents got divorced. I was only 10 years old, but the pain and the anger I felt still lingered. My mother would cry at night, her body shaking with sobs. I would try to comfort her, to hold her close, but deep down I was scared. Scared that I was losing my family, scared that I was losing myself. As I grew older, I began to notice strange inconsistencies in my parents' stories. They would contradict each other or leave out important details. It was as if they were hiding something big. I tried to brush it off, to tell myself that I was just being paranoid. But the feeling of unease lingered, like a shadow in the corner of my mind. It wasn't until I stumbled upon Emma's social media profiles that I finally understood the truth. She was my twin sister, my mirror image. But she wasn't just a sibling. She was living my dream life. She had a beautiful house, a loving husband, and a career that was taking off. I felt a pang of jealousy, of resentment. Why had she been given everything I had always wanted? I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. Why had my parents kept me in the dark? Why had they allowed Emma to live a life that was supposed to be mine? I felt like I was living in a parallel universe, one where everything was the same, yet somehow, everything was different. I decided to confront Emma, to ask her the questions that had been burning inside me for years. I found her address online and took a deep breath before driving to her house. As I pulled up to the curb, I felt my heart racing with anxiety. What would I say to her? How would she react? I walked up to the front door, my hand trembling as I knocked. The door swung open, and Emma stood before me, a smile on her face. We stared at each other, two strangers who shared a bond that was stronger than blood. "Hi," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. "I've been expecting you." I took a step back, my mind reeling with questions. What did she mean? Why had she been expecting me? I tried to speak, but the words got stuck in my throat. Emma took a step closer, her eyes locked on mine. "I know you're angry," she said, her voice calm and soothing. "I know you feel betrayed, but I want you to know that I had nothing to do with it. I didn't choose to be the favorite, to be the one who got everything." I felt a spark of anger ignite within me. "You're not the favorite," I spat, my voice trembling. "I'm the one who's been left behind." Emma's expression softened, and she took another step closer. "I know that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I want you to know that I'm not the one who decided to keep you in the dark. I'm not the one who chose to live this life." I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. What was she saying? Who was behind it all? Emma's eyes locked on mine, and I saw something there, something that made my heart skip a beat. "It was my husband," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's the one who decided to keep our secret. He's the one who chose to live this life with me." I felt a cold dread creeping up my spine. What did she mean? What had happened? As I stood there, frozen in shock, Emma's words hung in the air like a challenge. I felt like I was staring into a mirror, one that reflected back at me a life that was not my own. A life that was supposed to be mine, but was now lost forever. I took a step back, my mind reeling with questions. What had happened? Why had they kept me in the dark? But as I turned to leave, I felt a hand on my shoulder, a gentle touch that made me pause. "Wait," Emma said, her voice soft and gentle. "I want to show you something." I turned back to her, my heart pounding in my chest. What did she want to show me? What secrets was she hiding? As I followed her into the house, I felt like I was stepping into a world that was not my own. A world that was full of secrets, full of lies. But I was determined to uncover the truth, to find out what had happened to my life, to my family. And as I walked into that house, I knew that I was about to embark on a journey that would change my life forever. I stared at the screen, my eyes scanning through my sister's social media profiles. It was like looking at a stranger's life. We didn't keep in touch much after our parents' divorce, but I'd always known she was living a life that was different. Now, as I delved deeper into her online presence, I couldn't help but feel a pang of anger and betrayal. What was she hiding from me? I thought back to our childhood, the good times we shared, the laughter, the adventures. My sister and I were twins, inseparable at one point. But after our parents' divorce, everything changed. We grew apart, and I was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered family. It was like I was living in a different world, a world without my sister. As I looked at her Instagram posts, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy. She was living the life I'd always dreamed of, a beautiful home, a loving partner, a successful career. It was like she'd taken my dreams and run with them, leaving me in the dust. I felt like I was stuck in a never-ending cycle of disappointment and regret. I shook my head, trying to clear the thoughts that were swirling in my mind. Why was I so angry? What had my sister done to deserve this kind of treatment from me? I thought back to our conversations over the years, the way she'd always seemed so distant, so unreachable. It was like she was hiding something from me, something big. I knew I had to confront her, to ask her why she'd kept my existence a secret. But a part of me was scared, scared of what I might discover, scared of losing what little connection we had left. I thought back to the countless times I'd tried to reach out to her, the times I'd sent her messages, the times I'd called her. And each time she'd responded with a brief, "I'm fine," or "I'm busy." It was like she was hiding behind a mask that I couldn't seem to penetrate. As I sat there, feeling lost and alone, I realized that my anger was just a cover for something deeper, my sadness. I was sad that I'd lost my sister, sad that I'd never gotten to experience the close bond we'd once shared. I was sad that I'd been left to pick up the pieces of a shattered family, sad that I'd been left to wonder what could have been. I knew I had to take a step back, to try to understand my sister's perspective. Maybe she wasn't trying to hurt me. Maybe she was just trying to survive in a world that seemed to be moving at a different pace. Maybe she was scared, just like I was. Maybe we were both lost, both trying to find our way in a world that seemed to be spinning out of control. As I sat there, feeling the weight of my emotions, I knew I had a decision to make. I could continue to dwell on my anger, or I could try to move forward, to try to understand my sister's motivations. It was a risk that could either lead to healing or further heartache. But I knew I had to take it, for my own sake, for the sake of my family, and for the sake of my sister, who was still out there, living her life. Unaware of the pain she'd caused me, I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm that was raging inside me. I knew I had to be brave, to face my fears, to confront my sister, and to find out the truth. The question was I ready? Was I ready to face the unknown, to face the pain, and to face the truth? I didn't know, but I knew I had to try for my own sake, and for the sake of my sister, who was still out there, living her life, unaware of the pain she'd caused me. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. I felt a sense of trepidation, a sense of uncertainty, but I knew I had to move forward, to take the first step towards healing, towards understanding, and towards confronting my sister. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm that was raging inside me. I was ready, I told myself. I was ready to face the unknown, to face the pain, and to face the truth. But as I stood up, ready to take the first step towards confrontation, I felt a sense of doubt creeping in. Was I really ready? Was I really prepared for what I might discover? The thought sent a shiver down my spine, a shiver that seemed to freeze time, a shiver that seemed to make me question everything. And in that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could walk away, or I could take the first step towards confrontation, towards healing, and towards truth. I stood there, frozen in time, unsure of what to do next. The decision was mine, and mine alone. I knew I had to be brave, to face my fears, to confront my sister, and to find out the truth. The question was I ready? Was I ready to face the unknown, to face the pain, and to face the truth? Only time would tell. As I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by the familiar scent of stale air and yesterday's coffee, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had been building inside me for weeks. My sister, Rachel, had always been the golden child, the one who seemed to have it all together while I struggled to find my place in the world. But it wasn't just her outward success that had me reeling. It was the secrets she'd kept from me, the ones that had left me feeling like I was living in a parallel universe. I had always known that Rachel and I were twins, but our parents had kept our existence a secret from the world. We'd grown up in a bubble, shielded from the outside world and each other's lives. But as I'd grown older, I'd begun to notice the subtle differences in our lives. The way she seemed to effortlessly glide through adulthood while I struggled to find my footing. And then there were the social media updates, the ones that made my stomach twist with jealousy. Rachel's posts were always perfect, a curated selection of sun-kissed vacation photos, designer handbags, and sparkling champagne toasts. It was like she was living a different life, one that I could only dream of. I'd tried to brush off my feelings, to tell myself that I was just being insecure, that Rachel was entitled to her own happiness. But the more I dug, the more I uncovered a web of lies and deceit that left me questioning everything. I started by scouring Rachel's social media profiles, searching for any clues that might explain why she'd kept our existence a secret. But as I scrolled through her posts, I realized that it wasn't just her online persona that was fake, it was her entire life. Every photo, every update, every carefully crafted post was a lie, a carefully constructed facade designed to hide the truth. I felt a wave of anger wash over me as I realized that my sister had been living my dream life, the one I'd always wanted but never thought I could have. And she'd done it all behind my back, using our shared secret to manipulate and control those around her. But as the anger gave way to a deeper sadness, I couldn't help but wonder, what had driven Rachel to do this? Was it a desperate attempt to escape the reality of our situation, or a twisted desire for power and control? And what did it say about me that I'd been so blind to her deception? As I sat in the darkness, surrounded by the shadows of my own doubts and fears, I knew that I had to confront Rachel. I had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. But as I reached for my phone, my hand hesitated, frozen in uncertainty. What would I find when I faced her? Would I discover a sister who was just as lost and confused as I was? Or a stranger who had been living a life that was nothing like mine? And what would happen to our relationship when the truth finally came to light? The questions swirled in my mind like a maelstrom, leaving me feeling lost and unsure of what to do next. But as I looked around my small apartment, I knew that I had to keep moving forward, no matter how difficult it might be. For the sake of our relationship, for the sake of my own sanity, I had to confront the truth, no matter what it might bring. And so, with a deep breath, I made the decision that would change everything. I picked up my phone, my heart pounding in my chest, and dialed Rachel's number. As I waited for her to answer, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held, and whether I was ready to confront the secrets that had been hiding in plain sight all along. I stared at my sister's face, her smile a stark contrast to the emotions brewing inside me. We sat in her spacious living room, the smell of freshly baked cookies wafting from the kitchen. I'd been planning this conversation for weeks, ever since I stumbled upon her social media profiles and couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something from me. "Rachel, can I ask you something?" I said, trying to sound casual, despite the tension building in my chest. She nodded, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Of course, sis. What's up? I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. I've been noticing that you've been posting a lot of photos with people I've never met before. And they all seem to be living this really idyllic life. You know, the kind that looks perfect on Instagram, but I'm not sure it's always real. Rachel's smile faltered for a moment, and I saw a flicker of something like guilt in her eyes. But then she laughed, a little too loudly, and said, "Oh, you're talking about my friends from the community center. We all get together and have potlucks and stuff. It's just a bunch of regular people trying to make a difference." I raised an eyebrow, sensing that she was hiding something. Regular people? You mean like people who live in our city? Rachel nodded, her eyes darting around the room as if she was searching for an escape route. Yeah, that's right. They're just normal people, sis. Nothing to be concerned about. But I was concerned. I was concerned because I knew my sister, and I knew that she wasn't just making friends with these people. I knew that she was hiding something from me, something big. Rachel, look at me, I said, my voice firm but controlled. I need you to be honest with me. What's going on? Why are you living this fake life? Rachel's eyes dropped, and for a moment I thought I saw tears welling up in them. But then she looked up at me, a defiant glint in her eye, and said, "I'm living my dream life, sis. And you're just jealous." I felt a pang of anger at her words, but I tried to keep my cool. Jealous of what exactly? Your fake friends and your perfect Instagram photos? Rachel shrugged, her smile back in place. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not real. I'm happy, sis, and that's all that matters. I sighed, feeling a sense of frustration wash over me. I knew that I wasn't going to get the truth out of her today, not in this conversation at least. But I was determined to keep digging, to keep pushing until I uncovered the secrets she was hiding from me. As I stood up to leave, Rachel called out after me, "Hey, sis!" "Can I ask you something?" I turned back to her, a sense of trepidation building in my chest. "What is it?" Rachel's smile faltered again, and for a moment I saw a glimmer of uncertainty in her eyes. I want you to be happy too, sis. You deserve it." I felt a lump form in my throat as I looked at my sister, really looked at her for the first time in years. I saw the pain and the fear in her eyes, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to walk away from this conversation without confronting the truth. But for now, I just nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I'll try, Rachel. I'll try to be happy." As I walked out of her living room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a nightmare, one that I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to wake up from. I still can't believe what my sister, Rachel, has done. She's been hiding my twin sister's existence from me for years, and to make matters worse, she's living my dream life. The news spread like wildfire, and I've been met with a mix of reactions. Some people are sympathetic, while others are judgmental. As I navigated the fallout, I found myself struggling to come to terms with the truth. I couldn't help but wonder why Rachel had kept this secret from me. Was it jealousy? Competition? Or was it something more? The questions swirled in my head like a stormy sea, and I felt lost and alone. People would often say, "Just talk to Rachel and everything will be fine." But it wasn't that simple. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Rachel's actions had consequences. She had created a life for herself, one that was built on a lie. I couldn't just forgive and forget. I needed to understand why she did what she did. I started to notice the little things. The way Rachel would smile when she talked about our twin sister. The way she would avoid talking about her past. It was as if she was trying to keep a secret, one that she didn't want me to discover. But why? What could be so bad that she felt the need to hide it from me? As I dug deeper, I began to uncover more about our twin sister's life. I learned that she was successful, happy, and had a loving family. It was everything I had ever dreamed of, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. Why had Rachel gotten to live this life while I was stuck in a mundane routine? I started to question our relationship too. Had Rachel always been hiding secrets from me? Was I just a pawn in her game of deception? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I didn't know my sister at all. People would often ask me, "What's next?" But the truth is, I had no idea. I was still trying to process the information, still trying to understand why Rachel had done what she did. I felt like I was stuck in a never-ending cycle of questions with no clear answers in sight. As I looked around me, I saw the world in a different light. I saw the way people looked at me, the way they whispered behind my back. I saw the way Rachel's life had been built on a lie, and I knew that I had to confront her about it. But how do you confront someone who has been lying to you for years? How do you tell them that you're hurt, that you're angry, that you feel betrayed? I didn't know, but I knew that I had to try. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the conversation ahead. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to get the truth. I was determined to understand why Rachel had done what she did, and to find a way to move forward. As I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by the familiar scent of stale air and yesterday's coffee, I felt a sense of determination wash over me. I was ready to face whatever came next, ready to confront the truth and to find a way to heal. But little did I know, the fallout was only just beginning. I stood in my empty apartment, staring at the walls that had once echoed with my twin sister's laughter. It had been weeks since I'd discovered the truth. My sister Rachel had been hiding my twin sister's existence my entire life. The news still felt like a punch to the gut, a betrayal that made me question everything I thought I knew about my family. As I wandered through the rooms, memories flooded my mind. I remembered the countless hours we'd spent together as kids, the inside jokes, and the secrets we'd shared. But now it all felt like a lie. Rachel had been living my dream life, pursuing my passion, and building a family of her own. I couldn't help but wonder what my life would be like if I'd been given the same opportunities. I took a deep breath and let my gaze wander to the photos on the wall. There were pictures of me and Rachel, smiling and happy, but also images of my twin sister, who I'd never met. I felt a pang of sadness, knowing that I'd been robbed of the chance to experience that special bond. As I reflected on my own actions, I realized that I had played a role in Rachel's deception, albeit unintentionally. I had always been the more outgoing and confident one, while Rachel had been more reserved and introverted. I had often taken the lead, making decisions and pursuing opportunities that Rachel had been too afraid to take. But now, I saw that my actions had created a power imbalance in our relationship. Rachel had felt like she was living in my shadow, and she had made the decision to hide my twin sister's existence to protect herself from feeling inadequate. It was a painful realization, but it made me understand that Rachel's actions were a symptom of a larger issue, our own family dynamics and the way we had interacted with each other. I felt a sense of regret wash over me, knowing that I had unknowingly contributed to Rachel's feelings of inadequacy. I wondered how many other relationships I had damaged with my own actions, how many people I had unintentionally hurt by being too confident or outgoing. As I stood there, surrounded by the memories of my past, I began to see that my sister's actions were not just about hiding my twin sister's existence, but about the complex web of emotions and relationships that had led her to make that decision. I realized that I had been so focused on my own hurt and anger that I had neglected to see the humanity in Rachel's actions. I took a step back, looking at the walls and the photos with new eyes. I saw a family that had been struggling with their own issues, a family that had been hiding behind a mask of happiness and normalcy. And I saw a sister who had made a difficult decision to protect herself, a decision that had ultimately led to the truth coming to light. As I stood there, I felt a sense of compassion and understanding wash over me. I realized that I had been given a rare gift, the chance to see my sister's actions through her eyes, to understand the complexities of her decision and the emotions that had driven her. I felt a sense of peace settle over me, knowing that I had finally understood the truth. I knew that I would never be able to go back in time and change the past, but I could use this newfound understanding to move forward, to build a stronger and more loving relationship with Rachel, and to find a way to heal the wounds of the past. I stood in front of the old mirror, staring at the reflection of a person I'd once known but had long forgotten. The memories of my twin sister's laughter, our late-night conversations, and our shared joys all began to resurface like ripples on a pond. It had been weeks since I'd discovered the truth. Rachel, my sister, had been hiding my twin sister's existence my entire life. As I gazed into the mirror, I couldn't help but wonder what my twin sister's life was like. Did she have friends? Did she have a family? Was she happy? I'd always known I had a twin, but the reality of her existence had been conveniently tucked away by Rachel, my sister. It was as if I'd been living in a world with a permanent asterisk, a reminder that something was missing, but I'd never known what. I started to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I began with small things, like taking long walks through the park, rekindling old hobbies, and reconnecting with friends I'd lost touch with. I focused on self-care and self-love, learning to let go of the past and the pain it had caused. I started to see that I had the power to create a new future, one that was mine to write. I began to explore the city, visiting museums, attending concerts, and trying new restaurants. I reconnected with old friends, and we'd spend hours sharing stories, laughter, and tears. I started to see that life was full of beauty and wonder, and that my twin sister's existence didn't define me. I was more than just a twin. I was a person with my own story, my own dreams, and my own desires. As I continued to rebuild, I began to see the world in a different light. I started to appreciate the little things, the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves, the sound of birds chirping in the morning, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. I started to see that life was precious, and that every moment was an opportunity to create something new and beautiful. I began to write, pouring my thoughts, feelings, and emotions onto the page. I wrote about my twin sister, about Rachel, and about the pain and the anger I'd felt. I wrote about the joy and the wonder of discovering new things, of reconnecting with old friends, and of finding myself. I wrote about the power of self-love and self-care, and about the importance of embracing the unknown. As I wrote, I started to see that my life was not defined by my twin sister's existence. I was more than just a twin. I was a person with my own story, my own dreams, and my own desires. I was a person who had been hurt, but I was also a person who had been given a second chance. I was a person who had the power to create a new future, one that was mine to write. I realized that my twin sister's existence was not a secret to be kept. It was a part of my story, a part of my history. It was a reminder that life was full of surprises, and that sometimes the things we thought we knew were just a facade. I realized that my twin sister's existence was a gift, a reminder that I was not alone, that I had a sister who loved me, even if she had kept her existence a secret. As I continued to write, I started to see that my life was not just about me. It was about the people around me, the people who had been affected by my twin sister's existence. I started to see that Rachel had been struggling with her own demons, that she had been trying to protect me from the pain of discovery. I started to see that my twin sister's existence was not a secret to be kept. It was a part of our family's history, a part of our story. I started to see that my life was not just about the past. It was about the present and the future. I started to see that I had the power to create a new future, one that was mine to write. I started to see that I was not just a twin. I was a person with my own story, my own dreams, and my own desires. I was a person who had been hurt, but I was also a person who had been given a second chance. I stood in my empty apartment, staring at the walls that had once echoed with my twin sister's laughter. The memory of her existence had been a secret, hidden by my sister Rachel, and it was a wound that still felt raw and fresh. At first, I thought I'd be consumed by anger and resentment. But as I reflected on my feelings, I realized that forgiveness wasn't for Rachel's sake. It was for mine. Forgiveness had become a necessity, a way to break free from the weight that had been holding me back. Every time I thought about Rachel and her deceit, a sense of bitterness would creep in, but I knew I couldn't let it consume me. Holding on to anger was like being stuck in quicksand. The more I struggled, the deeper I'd sink. I needed to find a way to rise above it, to rise above the pain and move forward. I remembered the conversations we'd had, the laughter we'd shared, and the late-night talks about our dreams and aspirations. It was a life we'd built together, a life that Rachel had taken from me without my knowledge or consent. But as I thought about it more, I realized that I'd been given a second chance, a chance to rediscover myself and rebuild my life. The thought of forgiving Rachel was daunting, but I knew it was the only way to heal. I couldn't change the past, but I could control my response to it. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting or excusing her actions. It was about releasing the hold she had on me. I started to let go of the past, to focus on the present, and to find a new sense of purpose. It was a difficult process, but with each passing day, I felt myself becoming lighter, freer. I began to see the world in a different light, to appreciate the beauty in the small things, and to find joy in the everyday moments. Forgiveness had given me a gift, the gift of living in the present, of embracing the uncertainty, and of finding peace in the midst of chaos. As I stood in my apartment, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I knew that I still had a long way to go, but I also knew that I was on the right path. Forgiveness had become my anchor, my guiding light, and my source of strength. I was no longer held back by the weight of my emotions. I was free to live, to love, and to build a new life, one that was mine to create. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs, and I smiled. I smiled because I knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be. I was on a journey of self-discovery, of healing, and of growth, and I was ready to face whatever lay ahead, armed with the power of forgiveness and the courage to live my life to the fullest. As I walked out of my apartment, I felt a sense of hope that I hadn't felt in a long time. I knew that I would always carry the scars of my past with me, but I also knew that I was strong enough to rise above them. Forgiveness had given me a new lease on life, and I was determined to make the most of it. I was going to live my life with intention, with purpose, and with a heart full of love and forgiveness. I stood at the edge of my backyard, gazing out at the garden where my sister Rachel and I used to spend hours playing as kids. It was a simple, serene scene. The soft sunlight, the chirping birds, and the vibrant colors of the flowers. But for me, it was a reminder of everything I'd been missing out on. It had been months since I discovered the truth about my twin sister's existence, and it still felt like a punch to the gut. Rachel had been living my dream life, the life I'd always wanted for myself. She'd married a successful man, had beautiful children, and lived in a stunning home. It was as if she'd stolen my identity, my happiness, and my sense of belonging. But as I stood there, something shifted inside me. I realized that I'd been holding on to anger and resentment for far too long. It was eating away at me, making it hard to sleep, hard to eat, and hard to breathe. I knew I needed to find a way to let go, to move on from the pain and the betrayal. I started by prioritizing my own needs and desires. I began to focus on my career, my relationships, and my health. I started taking care of myself, physically and emotionally. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I felt like giving up. But with each small victory, I felt a sense of strength and resilience growing inside me. I started to see that I was capable of so much more than I thought. I was stronger than I thought. I was braver than I thought. And with that realization came a sense of freedom, a sense of release. I was no longer bound by my twin sister's secrets and lies. I was free to create my own life, my own happiness, and my own sense of purpose. As I stood in my garden, feeling the warmth of the sun on my skin and the breeze in my hair, I knew that I had a choice to make. I could continue to dwell on the past, on the what-ifs and the maybes. Or I could choose to move forward, to create a new reality, a new me. And as I looked out at the garden, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I stood in my backyard, feeling the morning sunlight warm my skin and the gentle breeze rustle my hair. The garden was coming alive, with vibrant flowers blooming and birds singing their sweet melodies. It was a moment of profound peace, one that I'd been craving for what felt like an eternity. As I breathed in the scent of fresh-cut grass, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. The past few months had been a blur of emotions, anger, hurt, and confusion. But in this moment, I felt like I was finally starting to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. I thought about all the things I'd been putting off, all the dreams I'd been too afraid to chase. I remembered the countless nights I'd spent lying awake, wondering what my life would be like if my sister Rachel hadn't hidden my twin's existence. What if I'd grown up with a sibling, sharing secrets and laughter, and creating memories that would last a lifetime? What if I'd had a twin, someone who understood me in a way that no one else ever could? The questions swirled in my mind like a maelstrom, but as I stood in my garden, I felt a sense of purpose rising up within me. I took a deep breath and let my gaze wander to the garden, where a small patch of soil was waiting for me to plant a new seedling. It was a tiny thing, but it represented so much, a chance to start anew, to create something beautiful from the ashes of my old life. I felt a sense of excitement building inside me, a sense of possibility that I hadn't felt in years. As I walked over to the garden, my footfalls were light and carefree. I felt like I was walking into a new chapter of my life, one that was full of promise and possibility. I remembered the words of a wise friend who'd once told me that sometimes the hardest thing to do is let go of the past and move forward. And in that moment, I knew that I was ready to do just that. The garden was a metaphor for my life, a place where things could grow and flourish, where new beginnings could take root. And as I stood there, surrounded by the beauty of nature, I felt a sense of hope rising up within me. I knew that I still had a long way to go, that there would be ups and downs, twists and turns along the way. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was walking towards the light, towards a future that was mine alone. The sound of birds singing and the rustle of leaves in the wind created a soothing melody, one that seemed to match the rhythm of my heartbeat. I felt a sense of peace settle over me, a sense of knowing that everything was going to be okay. And as I stood there, surrounded by the beauty of the garden, I knew that I was ready to face whatever came next, armed with nothing but my courage, my conviction, and my heart. I stood in the garden, surrounded by the vibrant colors of blooming flowers and the sweet melodies of chirping birds. It was a moment of profound peace, one that I had been longing for after the tumultuous journey that had brought me to this point. My sister Rachel had hidden my twins' existence from me, and in doing so, had lived the life I had always dreamed of. As I gazed out at the garden, I couldn't help but think about the lessons I had learned from this experience. Family is not just about blood ties, but about the bonds we form with one another. My sister and I had grown up together, sharing secrets and laughter, but in the end, her actions had torn us apart. Or had they? I remembered the first time I had discovered the truth about my twins' existence. It had been a slow-building realization, a sense of unease that had crept up on me like a thief in the night. I had tried to brush it off, to convince myself that it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew that something was off. As I stood in the garden, I realized that my sister's actions had been a symptom of a deeper issue. She had been struggling to find her place in the world, to make a name for herself, and in doing so, had turned to deception and manipulation. I couldn't blame her entirely, though. I had always been the one who had chased my dreams, who had taken risks and pushed the boundaries of what was possible. But what about my twin? Where was she now? Had she found happiness in the life my sister had created for her, or was she still searching for her own identity? I pushed the thoughts aside, not wanting to dwell on the what-ifs. Instead, I focused on the present moment, on the beauty of the garden and the peace that it brought me. As I stood there, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I knew that I had come a long way since the days of turmoil and uncertainty. I had learned to forgive, to let go of the anger and resentment that had consumed me. And in doing so, I had found a sense of freedom, a sense of peace that I had never known before. But I knew that this was not just my story. It was a story that many people could relate to, a story of family secrets and lies, of deception and betrayal. And so, I wanted to share it with you, to invite you to share your own stories of struggle and resilience. What secrets have you kept hidden? What lies have you told yourself or others? How have you found the strength to forgive and move forward? I want to hear your stories, to know that I am not alone in this journey. As I stood in the garden, surrounded by the beauty of nature, I knew that I had found a new beginning. A beginning that was not about the past, but about the present and the future. A beginning that was full of hope and possibility. A beginning that was mine to create. And so, I invite you to join me on this journey, to share your stories and your struggles, to find the strength to forgive and move forward. Together, we can create a world that is full of love, compassion, and understanding. A world where secrets are no longer kept hidden, but are instead shared and healed.